Hey everybody, I'm Vasel and welcome to Week in Review. This is where we take a look at all the different videos that Dice Tower put out this past week. We tell you what we think of them, and then there's links in the description below. Let's get started.
Hey everybody, I'm Z Garcia. Here's what I reviewed last week. So I reviewed Busy Beaks, which I rated a 7 out of 10. This one is a card drafting, set making sort of card game in which you are going to be playing a card to the table, a little bird. That bird is going to allow you to manipulate or draft or take some cards. And ultimately you are trying to play a set of, like, say, 5 of these cards that all match, same kind of bird, and score some points. It's a little bit like Sushi Go in a way, in fact, from the same designer, but it has a spatial element to it on the table. And I really like what it does, kind of how it evolves from something like Sushi Go. The one part I didn't like as much was the scoring. I thought the scoring was very basic. But I understand that you can't add creativity and sort of a splash of pizzazz in every part of a game. So it's one that, for me specifically, that scoring I think might hold it back a little bit, but the gameplay, the turn-to-turn, the interest in collecting cards, that rising tension as I am almost ready to cash in a set, but someone goes before me and grabs more points than I would have, that's a very fun sort of structure to the system, and I really do enjoy it. Plus, the game is very attractive, and I think it's going to work well for mixed age groups. I reviewed Venturesome, which I rated a 7.5 out of 10. And I also did a comparison, by the way, Venturesome with the game it's based on, Dark Whisperings, or Palace Whisperings. It's originally a German design. So I have a video comparing those two things and a review of Venturesome, which is this kind of very confrontational, very mean, Indiana Jones-esque card game, in which you are going to be playing characters out in front of you, manipulating things, stealing cards and giving back cards to other players, trying to be the one that banks the most points after you've played 3 rounds. You have to contend with hazards that are going to rip apart some of the cards you played in front of you before you're able to bank them, and you have to manage all of that, trying to make the best combinations. It's a lovely looking game. It's got a lot of interest in it, and while it's certainly not a game that everyone is going to enjoy, again, it can be very mean, and you can certainly have some folks that are going to feel picked on. I think it does what it does incredibly well, and it's a lovely evolution on that original game, Dark Whisperings. And then lastly, I reviewed Gosu 10, which I rated an 8 out of 10. And this one is also an evolution of a game called Gosu. This one is a 2-player only trading card game-esque game in which you are playing out these cards in front of you, building up the different clans represented in the game, and trying to have the most strength on the table. There's a lot of overhead in this game, and in fact, I think my biggest detriment for it is the fact that it is not newbie-friendly whatsoever. The game has lots going on. It is a game that's going to reward you playing with the same people over and over. It's going to evolve, it's going to blossom as you discover the intricacies there. It's a game that seems incredibly well balanced and well tested. But again, it's one that at first blush you might go, wow, this is so not for me. If you're someone who loves, though, trading card games, collectible card games, and you want one that feels like it's self-contained and offers a lot in just a little box, then I definitely recommend it. And that's it for me, folks. I'll see you on the next one.
Hi, I'm Wendy Yee, and this week I have 3 games that I reviewed. The first one is Skyrim. I gave it a 6. I really enjoy the video game Skyrim, so it was fun to be brought back into that world and kind of get to re-explore it from a different angle. But at the end of the day, this game had a lot of mechanics. Way too many mechanics for the type of story game that I think that it was. And it definitely seems like it's much better as a solo game, maybe 2 players, but no more than that. So I gave that a 6 for those reasons. The next one is Joan of Arc, the draw and write, because you draw things out of a bag and you write them. I just learned that's why it's draw and write. Anyways, I gave that one an 8. I really enjoyed it. I think that it had a lot of fun elements pulled from Orleans, but it wasn't just a repeat of that game. It had tons of those roll and write feels that I really enjoy of, ooh, I get this thing, I move these roads so I get more stuff so that I can get more things and I can connect columns and rows together and get bonuses. It's got a lot of that fun stuff in it. The last one is Busy Beaks. This is a Phil Walker Harding game made for kids, but I definitely don't feel like it's a kids game. It's rated 8, but I think it's more like 10 plus. But I gave it an 8.5 because I absolutely enjoyed it. I think that the card play is very clean. The deck is very mixable. You can change things up. And it's one of those games that's just very light and smooth, and I like a lot of what's going on. So anyways, that's what I reviewed this week. Thanks for joining me. Let's see who's next.
Another week in review. This week I took a look at the Boruto game. This is Boruto the board game. This is a cooperative game based on the Naruto series. This is basically the continuation of that. But the board game itself is a cooperative game where you're trying to like mitigate all these different villains, trying to destroy the village. I thought the game was pretty lucky overall. I think it would work okay in a situation where you had somebody that loved that IP. I know there's not that many people in this industry at all that love that IP, but for me, it's a 6, so not super high for me. And then we also played Inside Job and did a review for that. This is basically like a trick-taking game with social deduction thrown in there, and it's very interesting how everything comes together. I give this one an 8. I really enjoyed the game. I played this a bunch of times. I played it at Dice Tower West. I played it a bunch here. I really enjoyed it. So it's a fun one, especially if you enjoy things like The Crew, but want like The Crew sort of thing, but with social deduction, because you have a little bit of a teamwork, but then somebody's on a different team. Super fun, Inside Job. Anyway, that's the things that I looked at this week. I'll see you next time.
Hey everyone, Chris here. This week I took a look at a few games. First was Inside Job. This is a trick-taking social deduction game, almost cooperative. Give a 7 to. I enjoyed this one. It's fun. I do feel like trying to complete the missions is fairly random, and so there is some good deduction, but there's also plenty of hands where like, well, I'm just kind of guessing at this point. Next up, Skyrim, the adventure game. Elder Scrolls V, Skyrim, the adventure game. Too long of a name. 7.5. I surprisingly like this one. It has almost equal parts things going wrong with it as it does things going right with it, but the things that go right for it really make up for it. Best as a solo, and then maybe as a 2-player game. Never play with 4. Next up, Trailblazers. I gave an 8.5. This is a Ryan Courtney game where you are drafting cards, then laying out... It's Pipeline or Curious Cargo, but as a card drafting game. It's very approachable, very fun. I really like the different objectives and just seeing the thing that you make. Really worth checking out. And then lastly, I took a look at Maquis. There's a little bit of a rewind. This is an older game, but it kind of got a second edition. This is a solo worker placement game that is very tense, very good, very fast, small setup, and just really enjoyable. So a video that I hope that you would check out to look at this game that's a little bit older, that I still think is excellent. So that has been my week.
Hi everybody, these are the games I reviewed this week. This was actually a really good week on reviewing good games that I liked. Some I liked more than I thought I would, which is always a pleasant surprise. The first one was a roll and write, which I normally like roll and writes, but it is Joan of Arc Orleans Draw and Write. And this one I enjoyed. If you like Orleans, you're going to know the artwork. The artwork is pretty much the same. It is pretty much the same game as a Draw and Write, and I guess it's called a Draw and Write because you do draw out of the bag. I don't know, but anyway, I did enjoy the game a lot. I gave it a 7.5, so if you like Orleans or if you just like roll and writes, then I say give this a try because it is that as a roll and write. Same artwork though, so if you hate the artwork, you won't like the artwork in this one, but if the artwork doesn't bother you, you're gonna love this game. It's a great, great game. All right, the other one is Gosu X. This is one that is apparently a reprint or a reimagining, I guess. It's one that Z had played before and I had not. So this is my first kind of venture into this whole system. And again, this one surprised me a lot. I really enjoyed this game. This one, you need to watch the review to get the full experience of it, but it's a battling game, 1v1, similar to Summoner Wars or Radlands, but a lot more depth. So this one you will want to play several times, and there are different factions. You draft different factions back and forth. The artwork is stunning on this, and it's really fun how to go back and forth, and it can swing. So you're never actually really behind. You can then, there was one time I thought I was going to lose the game, almost going to tip my hat and just end it. And a card came forward allowing me to win that round and thus win the game. So actually it's very fun. I do like this game a lot. I gave it an 8. It held back a little bit because the rulebook has some problems and I wish there was a better play rate. But I did enjoy that a lot. And then Skyrim. This is a big game that people are looking forward to because it's based on a really a really small indie video game. Not a lot of people have played it though, but it's a little game called Skyrim. Look it up; you'll be surprised. You know, you have to Google it a lot and look very, very deep. But this is Skyrim, so it's very exciting. This one I came in. It was a weird journey for me. I talk about it on the review because I started off really low because I played it at a too high of a player count at 4 players, and it was a disaster. I played it 3 times at 4 players and tried it again at 3, and it's brutal at those bigger player counts for me. But at a smaller player count, that is when it shines, and that is when this review went up for me because it's a very fun, immersive style game. There's a lot going on to it. I did come in at an 8, which is a bit high for me on this game because I do not know the IP. I don't play Skyrim a lot. I've played it some, but I'm not really invested in the IP. So that isn't what pulled me into this. But the gameplay is good, especially at 1 or 2. I don't think I would ever play this at anything higher than that. It's a great solo game and a great 2-player game if you're looking to relax and jump into a new world. So that is Skyrim at an 8, and those are the 3 games I reviewed this week.
Hey everybody, it's Mike DeLisio, and this week I did 3 reviews. First up was Pathogen. Pathogen is a 2-player, abstract, asymmetric game, and I gave this an 8 out of 10. A really, really good game in a style and genre that I don't particularly usually like. I don't usually like a lot of 2-player games, and abstract games I'm really hit or miss with. But this was a game that, while it has a large learning curve, it's worth it because it's so unique. The idea is that one side is playing as the doctors, another side is playing as a plague, although it's very abstract, and you've got a movement board that is separate from the main player area, and you've got to figure out how you're going to manipulate your movement so that you can get to one of the 2 winning conditions the game has, either laying tokens in a way that connects both sides of the board or building 4 settlements. A very unique game, one that stands apart, I feel like, from other 2-player abstracts I've played. I also reviewed Trailblazers, and I gave this an 8.5 out of 10, a seal of excellence. This is coming from designer Ryan Courtney, who is mostly known for Pipeline and also Curious Cargo. And this uses a similar kind of pathing system, but for me, this one really, really hit, whereas Curious Cargo did not hit for me. This is a much more welcoming game. It's much more easy to kind of parse what you're doing. You're drafting cards, you're laying them out in any way you want. You can overlap, you can cover other cards with some restrictions, but you are trying to kind of create paths, different types of paths, kayaking or hiking, and so you're putting out 3 different base camps throughout the game and trying to connect particular colored paths. But really, really good game. I enjoyed the puzzle a lot. A fantastic production from Bitewing Games. So check out Trailblazers. And then finally this week I reviewed Ostia. I gave a 9 out of 10. This was a really good week for me, actually. Ostia is the newest game from designer Totsuka Cho, who I was previously familiar with their game Aqua Garden, which is now in my top 100 games of all time. And boy, this is a designer I'm going to be keeping an eye on because Ostia is fantastic. It's a much larger design, a much larger production, a beautiful, lavish production than Aqua Garden. And it uses a kind of a rondelle mechanic to drive the action. It has some things that are reminiscent of Trajan, and I think that was on purpose. But a really clever Euro game where, again, you are doing this kind of Mancala style system. I think I said rondelle, but it's more of a Mancala. And you are driving actions that are going to allow you to move boats along shipping paths. Really, really well done, rock solid Euro game. Ostia is really one you should check out. All right, well, that's it for me this week. Let's keep it moving.
All right, I didn't review as much this week because I was at the Gamma Trade Show, and I'm going to have video for that of you next week. But we still got a lot of different things that we took. We had, of course, all our regular shows. We had Board Game Breakfast, Board Game Smorgasbord, and some of the gang did their top 10 games they wish they had when they were teenagers, which is one of my favorite topics that we've ever taken a look at. So check that out. I also did an overview of Lorcana, this new hot trading card game, a Disney trading card game from Ravensburger. So I think that you might want, if you want to see how that looks. And then, of course, a bunch of other videos throughout the week, so check all of them out. Thank you all for watching the Dice Tower. We got more cool stuff coming for you next week. Until then, I'm Tom Vasel. This has been Week in Review on the Dice Tower.